It's 1988.
That is crazy.
When acid dropped on the UK.
All right, mate. Yeah, good hearing it.
Scandals got very juicy.
Cocaine and sex parties.
And gangsters came out of Compton.
We slapped everybody in the face and said, yo, listen to this.
Our small screens saw big changes.
Thunderbolt, lightning flash, fancy graphics.
Our future king was seconds from death.
The Prince of Wales was actually crying when they got him into the helicopter.
And the novel ignited mayhem.
Suddenly, I saw other British agents on TV burning books.
Strap in for 2 hours of astonishing events.
I can't believe it.
That will have your jaws hitting the floor.
One of the craziest episodes in the history of television news.
6 million people stopped buying eggs, which was quite an impact.
It just seems like a recipe for disaster.
Desperate drinkers got good news.
You couldn't buy alcohol anywhere out of hours.
BBC News became a battleground.
I'm afraid that we have rather been invaded.
And Cold Warriors got less frosty.
Things you just didn't think would ever happen, all sort of happened.
These are the most extraordinary events in TV, music, entertainment and politics that were, controversially, 1988. In a year when it was all about the money, the average UK house price neared 60,000. And free enterprise-loving Mrs. T became the century's longest-serving PM. One controversial comedy character spawned in 1988 reflected the age better than any other. His catchphrase was also his name. Clever, eh?
His character was greedy, cynical, self-interested, really crude, really obnoxious guy that just wants to get rich.
What's happening? What is that? UK. I'll tell you what that is, right? That is loads of money! And it's all mine, right? Loads of money!
It was sports casual, wasn't it? Brassy kind of streaked hair, really spanky trainers, and a wad. Like that.
I'm a plasterer, see? Bush, shum, dollop, lovely job, loads of money!
The intention of the character was very definitely to take the piss out of this kind of Thatcherite moment where greed was acceptable. It was acceptable to go around flashing your wad.
And it became massive, this character. It was a sort of thing that everybody was doing in the playground. It became an iconic national figure.
When I go down to football, right, I always sit behind the dugout where El-Tel sits, right? I lean over to him, I go, oi, El-Tel, loads of money!
Performing this horrible, shouty plasterer was nice, softly-spoken Harry Enfield.
Is this kind of a social comment?
Well, yes. I mean, that's how he started off, and that's what I think he still is, really. But, I mean, I see him as Mrs. Thatcher without the elocution lessons.
The character captured the public imagination in 1988, even bagging a top 5 single. So far, so good, until Harry lost control of his comic creation.
It bit him because the people that he was lampooning, satirising, were the biggest fans.
The irony is, everybody loves him. I mean, I don't know why, but
well, I don't know, you see. I mean, people have said this to me. Don't you think you've created a monster here that people worship?
There were people who were going, that's me. Cash in hand, down to boozer, got loads of money.
Poor Harry. His vicious satire of 88's avaricious attitudes had become a role model for the very many real loads of monies out there.
Unfortunately, comedy creators can't take control of where their characters go in the minds of the public, and he became very swiftly a sort of folk hero.
Loads of Money had helped make Harry Enfield a household name, but so shocked was he by scenes like this, where Southern football fans started waving their wads at opponents from the north, Loads of Money style, he decided to do something drastic.
And so famously, on a comic relief broadcast, Harry killed off Loads of Money.
The character had burnt brightly but briefly.
Hello, loads of money!
But if you want one word that defines the late 80s era of vulgar excess, loads of money is a war cry from the haves to the have-nots.
It's a brilliant microcosm of late 80s comedy. It's a Thatcherite comedy behemoth.
Ah, remember when homes only had one screen? In 1988, that lonely screen hosted a TV revolution.
Our tea time routine was getting from school, Grange Hill, Neighbours, tea, at which point Dad gets in and puts the 6 o'clock news on. We don't really want to watch the 6 o'clock news, but there was no alternative until Deaf 2 comes along.
The graphics screamed, this is hip and happening, honest, as Deaf 2 dished up shocking topics like...
sex, drugs and radical politics.
Yeah, right on, see? Stuffy old Auntie B could be down with the youth.
Yo, this is LL Cool J, you know what I'm saying? And I'm coming up next on Behind the Beat. That's right, boy.
It was move over, all of us starchy 6 o'clock newsers. Deaf 2's young presenters represented the kids.
We've been bombarded by so much conflicting information about AIDS that it's hard to know what to believe.
The camera work was crazy. The hosts were hip.
Which is absolutely wonderful and makes a fantastic change, and I'm going to get run over.
Although some asked, was it trying just a bit too hard?
Well, Deaf 2, are you deaf? Deaf 2, deaf? Yes, deaf, it means definitely. Short for definitely, it means very good. Well, cool.
Deaf 2 was the brainchild of Janet Street Porter. She'd masterminded the painfully hip Network 7 on rival Channel 4 and had been poached with the job of injecting some street cred into BBC 2.
I'm trying to win what I would call the lost audience back to television, the 16 to 25-year-olds. But the programmes that I'll make, and I won't just make programmes, it's a scheduling thing too.
So, in a sense, she's just taking one idea and moving it to a channel that's usually quite hesitant about youth culture and not that good at doing it, and saying, this is what we can do and we can make it this, this and this.
Janet Street Porter was kind of wild and different. And I think they thought, oh, yeah, the youth will love her.
The look of the news shows was in your face.
And all of a sudden it was like thunderbolt, lightning flash, fancy graphics everywhere, Deaf 2, noise, jumping out of the screen.
Even the BBC 2 branding got a remix.
And, of course, the other big controversy was they changed the logo of BBC 2, so you had, like, this barcode.
With Deaf 2, they tried to make it seem cool and edgy. Obviously, because I guess barcodes were new then.
Let's have a barcode. Hello, let's have a barcode, Deaf 2.
Twice weekly, Deaf 2 hijacked BBC 2's airwaves, replacing the usual shows with edgy, teen-focused telly. So you'd find kids taking on pillars of the establishment.
Question in the back row, the leather jacket.
You said that you and your business's success was due to you being different. Does this being different include breaking the law?
There was youth-skewed current affairs.
Well, so far this year, 1,000 people have died of AIDS, according to the latest figures. If you think it's a disease which only affects homosexuals and drug addicts, you'd be wrong.
Move over, Judith Chalmers. When Deaf 2 travelled, you'd wish you were there with them.
What I enjoyed watching was the rough guides, because I thought that's what TV hasn't done before.
How do you pronounce this? Van Gogh.
Van Gogh?
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh. I haven't seen anything that can tell me where to go, but also has great places to go for people under 45.
Well, the streets of Amsterdam are a bad enough problem if you've got normal feet. But can you imagine having to wear shoes that are this size?
Deaf 2 was fresh, exciting and showcased the best new TV talent, welcoming to our screens the likes of the young Krishnan Guru Murthy.
Hello and welcome to Open to Question.
We said bonjour to Antoine de Caunes, all Gallic gregariousness on Rapido. And this brave new TV domain had its queen, too.
Even the firefighters are hunky.
One of the most memorable characters, of course, from the dawn of youth television is the one and only Magenta Divine.
This billboard will be showing neon art, which, of course, fits in terribly well with Piccadilly's neon advertising.
And I do remember the thing that really made us stand out, of course, is the fact that she used to sport these Rock Widow sunglasses sort of underneath a very severely cut bob.
OK, it might look almost quaint and strangely innocent now, but back then, this stuff was pushing boundaries.
If I look back at Deaf 2, I think it needs a lot of credit for breaking fresh ground. It was a pioneering programme that said it's OK to break some rules here because there's an audience that aren't being served.
We've got more controversies on the way as long haul becomes less of a drag.
That is crazy.
Last orders get their marching orders.
You couldn't get a drink because pubs shut.
And illegal raves dance to a new mantra.
Acid!
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 We're looking back at the memorable moments that were completely controversial in 1988. If you jumped into a time machine, the first thing you'd notice is smoke. Everywhere. Before 1988, nicotine addicts could light up wherever they wanted, no matter how enclosed or how dangerous.
I can't believe you used to be able to smoke on the planes. I can't believe it. Like, isn't that a health hazard?
You can't even think of that right now, that anyone would ever smoke on an airplane.
So you're sitting on a plane up in the sky and somebody takes out a match, strikes it and lights a cigarette. I mean, that is crazy.
Spot on, Nikki. With package holidays booming, more and more of us were heading skyward, savouring micro-portioned food and tiny tins of lager before arriving in paradise, all smelling like ashtrays.
There was a section that you could smoke in, and there was a section that you didn't smoke in.
The last 6 rows of the seats were set back for smokers. So if you were in the 7th seat from the back, it was absolutely disgusting.
As if the children and families towards the front weren't breathing in people's Rothmans cigarette smoke.
1988 saw the first rollout in America of new rules that would gradually extinguish hopes of a mid-air puff globally.
Yeah, in-flight smoking, 1988. Wow, done.
Although for those partial to a drink in the UK, it was party time. Pubs everywhere. But for large chunks of the day, not a drop to drink. Until in 1988, a licensing law revolution introduced all-day opening.
It seems extraordinary now to remember that if you were thirsty at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you couldn't get a drink because pubs shut.
Last orders now, ladies and gentlemen, please.
By law, pubs could open between 12 and 2, then they shut, and they opened again at 5 until 10:30 or 11 at weekends.
And it wasn't just the pubs. You couldn't buy alcohol anywhere out of hours. So you'd be in a supermarket on a Saturday afternoon, and you put a 4-pack of beer in your trolley, and they go, sorry, it's outside of hours.
Because the British are an enterprising lot, especially when thirsty, finding loopholes in the law had become a national sport.
There used to be regular articles in Time Out and the Evening Standard about how you could drink for 24 hours a day in London. This is London, right? You know, this great international capital city. And it did involve things like pretending you were a meat porter at Smithfield Market.
There was also supposed to be some market workers' pub in Billingsgate or something. You go there at 6 in the morning, you can get a drink. I remember thinking, I don't really want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to have a drink, but it sounded exciting and sort of slightly subversive.
To be fair, these draconian laws had been made for an earlier Britain in peril, but they still mystified modern visitors to our shores.
We have American friends over and you have to go, there's nowhere to go in central London, sorry. It's because of the First World War.
Yes, it was emergency measures introduced 74 years earlier that had been stopping the quaffing of 1980s Hofmeister and hooch.
Prime Minister Herbert Asquith decided that there's a war going on. What's everyone doing? They're going to the pub at lunchtime and getting drunk all day. So he decides that there's going to be a break in the day where you are not allowed to drink.
What do you see now? How many pints do we drink? How long?
There was one.
The man on the street, and it was usually a man, was all for the plan to ease restrictions.
I think it's a wonderful idea.
Why?
Because I think the pub should be on all day permanently for 24 hours.
I don't think it'd be any more drunkenness or violence or anything like that.
And then we had 2.
Although some guardians of the nation's morals were dead against it.
And then we had 3, 4, 5.
I think that the combination of all-day drinking and youth and unemployment and inner cities could be very dangerous.
Well, I'd say we had about 11 pints.
11 pints at lunchtime.
11 pints at lunchtime.
Finally, in August 1988, the 3/4 of a century wait for an afternoon tipple ended with that rarest of things, a government reform that people liked.
When they allowed all-day drinking, the nation didn't half have a party, mainly on a Wednesday afternoon.
But in 1988, some parties became the scourge of society. Middle England found a new public enemy #1 when a fresh musical trend burst from the underground in a splash of smiley faces and created a classic press storm.
Acid house was the genre that got white people dancing.
Dancing badly, mind.
It was a music scene dominated by house music and by people in kind of smiley logo T-shirts.
We knew when we saw that smiley face somewhere that it was a fun zone for us to go to.
There's lights, there's lasers, there's music, there's DJs, there's different areas. As far as the eye can see, you're walking along, everyone's dancing, people high up on podiums dancing. I mean, it's just amazing.
It just don't.
There was something intoxicating and mildly scary about the whole thing.
To give a sense of how revolutionary Acid House was, we need a history lesson about the Great British Saturday Night Out, mid-80s style.
What was the scene like before 1988? There was no scene. I mean, there was nothing. It was dire.
Dance music previously had been the preserve of the Mecca ballroom circuit. You still, to a degree, had to go and pay money to be looked up and down by some bruiser in a dicky bow who might well end up beating you up at the end of the evening.
Guys round the side, all the girls dancing around their handbags, then a slow track comes on and everyone has a snog and then they go home. And if you haven't pulled, then the guys will have a fight. It was grim.
One tiny acorn that would help lead to the mighty oak of UK rave culture was Shoon, a London club night where DJ Danny Rampling brought to the capital the house music that had been gaining traction in Ibiza.
I walked into this tiny little building and it's boiling hot and there's this music I'd never heard before. People smiling, you know, not going, hello, darling, can I get in your knickers? You know, it was like, what's your name? People chatting to each other. It was mind-blowing. It was amazing. And Shum, once you've had the best night of your life, you want to do it all the time. So we were like, well, do you know what? Let's just put on our own parties. And that's what we did.
Charlie's brother, Tony Colston Hayter, formed Sunrise, one of the era's foremost party-promoting outfits. Their genius idea was to bypass normal clubs completely.
The great revolutionary thing about Acid House is it said, no, we're going to take the music out of all that. We're going to start having it in car parks, in farmers' fields, anywhere we want to.
It became like a party treasure hunt, with ravers roaring around the M25 on a quest to discover that weekend's venue.
First of all, it's a mystery trip. You don't know where you're going to go.
Where do you think you're going to?
Mystery tour. We don't know. It's what's mystery.
That's the mystery about it. This is Acid, man.
We would have people meeting at 3 different locations. So, I don't know, South Mims or whatever, service station. They would phone up, they would get the address, and then there would be a convoy. You're driving along, you can see people in front, people behind you, and then eventually, if you're lucky, you then find the rave.
We've brought together key figures from the Acid House story. Now friends, In 1988, they were at war.
I was the area chief superintendent of Gravesend, Dartford, Sevenoaks, Tunbridge Wells.
The aim of our operation this weekend was to actually ensure the safety standards for these young partygoers.
Kenneth was actually the head of what they called the police pay party unit.
Quite frankly, there could well be a disaster at any time.
And I was on the side of doing illegal parties.
I have to say to him, you don't have to say anything unless you wish to do so. But anything you say may be taken down in evidence.
Well, I don't know, mate.
This huge empty warehouse on the Gillingham Business Park was another potential venue for the party, being watched by the Kent Police on Saturday night, acting on information gathered by their special squad, and with their suspicions enhanced by the fact that there were clear signs of a forced entry.
We'd look for these warehouses and essentially we'd break into them. We'd bring in sound and lights and thousands of people and, you know, we'd stay there for all night and have a party. Now, as an adult, looking back, you've got 10,000 people in a building, all of them are on drugs. I mean, that's got to be a nightmare for anyone.
Wayne was having parties in these warehouses. He put the electric in these warehouses from lamp posts in the road.
So if a warehouse, the electricity wasn't working, you know, you'd fit it to a lamp post.
Well, how safe's that? Yeah. No, he did. Yeah. How safe's that?
A weekly battle royal ensued between the police and partygoers and promoters, played out across Greater London and the home counties.
You have caused more of a breach of peace on this road than anybody has.
If we hadn't been here to stop you, we would have had the problem.
The cat and mouse was interesting.
They were my favourite bits as well,
yeah.
my interactions with the police.
Fearing further confrontation with overwhelming numbers, the senior police officer at the scene then decided to pull his officers out altogether and let the party go ahead.
Go and have your party in the field.
And in any battle, spreading misinformation is key.
He used to tell lies. Well, he's always told lies to me, but basically...
Yeah, until I knew him as a pal, you'd never ever tell Kenneth the truth, you know? You try and bend it as much as you can. If we could sell Kenneth and his boys, you know, up the M1 the wrong way, then we would do that. We'd give them fake addresses.
Although the police had their own tricks up their sleeves.
We set up our own radio station every Saturday night with youngsters, some young people of mine. It wasn't for me to talk on the radio. They had to talk in the rapping, if you understand me. What we did then with our Sunrise Radio, we then sent them to the wrong place completely. We did that all the time.
There's no party here.
There's no party here.
There is no party whatsoever.
Right, OK.
The reason why it got to the point where the police were having to do tactics like start their own pirate radio station was because it grew so big.
We just wanted to put on the biggest and best parties. Then we met somebody who had U2 stage lights. I don't know if U2 ever knew that we had their stage lights, but they had all these fairy lights. We had U2 stage lights at one of our parties.
Well, U2 definitely know now. And then the biggest controversy erupted. Just what was keeping these kids dancing like this all night?
Ecstasy is the drug that's causing most concern to both the police and the Drugs Advisory Services.
Ecstasy was the drug of the time. Anyone who tells you there were no drugs at acid house parties is telling lies.
Ecstasy, or MDMA pills, often carrying the smiley face acid house logo, had two crucial effects that defined the movement. One, endless energy.
I think it was something that people would take to dance a little longer on the dance floor, putting it mildly.
And two, making users relaxed, empathetic, and happy.
Ecstasy broke down barriers. Before, in nightclubs, people used to get drunk. They used to get drunk all the time and then have a big fight. I think ecstasy made you, I don't know, just like want to talk to people. It just broke down all those barriers.
Feel that good inside to wrap up the best sex, the best present your mum ever bought you as a kid, to wrap it all up into one feeling and put it in a nightclub situation with 2,000 other people and you all feel the same, then it's ecstasy. It's got the right name.
You'd be seeing this guy coming towards you with his eyes rolling, and you're thinking, hold on, it's going off here. And he would, all right, mate, how's it going? Yeah, it's good here, isn't it? And you go, oof, I thought he was going to jump us for a minute. He just wanted to dance.
In his role policing the situation, Chief Superintendent Tappenden soon became acquainted with the flip side of the ubiquitous drug use.
We used to have mothers ring us on a Sunday saying, have you seen my son, 18, 17? And we used to find them in ditches, still spaced out. You never knew until you turned them over whether they were alive or dead. And that's how serious the whole thing got.
Wow.
Some kids only had to have one drug and they're dead. That's frightening.
No surprise that parents were panicked and the press went into meltdown.
More than a dozen people are due to appear in court today following police raids on 4 acid house drugs parties over the weekend. Arrests were made at 4 parties in Essex, Kent, Sussex and Greenwich in London.
It's perfect tabloid fodder, isn't it?
2 hours earlier, scuffles had broken out after police raided another acid house party at Sevenoaks in Kent. 250 people had packed the empty property. It took more than 60 police to restore order.
It's the kind of controversy that you get every generation, and this was the 80s one.
I just remember that all the newspapers were saying, keep your kids in the house.
The police are giving little away about this operation, but some reports from eyewitnesses suggest it had been planned for some time, with undercover officers among the party guests.
It's a brilliant example of a moral panic. A few people getting in Vauxhall Vivas and going to somewhere on the M25 to dance about a bit in a field. That's like bringing about the downfall of society, which it clearly wasn't.
And the thing about tabloid outrage stories is you couldn't have a better advert for a club than The Sun screaming, people are taking drugs, they're having sex, they're staying up all night, they're having fun. You know, who wouldn't want to go to that? So those kind of outraged headlines just helped stir it and kind of popularise it with even more people.
And those headlines soon saw Acid House in the charts, courtesy of D-Mob featuring Gary Haseman. Suddenly everyone was chanting one word, over and over and over.
You just hear this, acid, acid. It did sound like a row of car alarms had gone off down the street. Acid,
acid,
acid.
You know, on the M1. And on the M25.
Yeah,
acid.
fantastic.
I think, why don't you clear off?
The song's success meant a Top of the Pops slot, where it wasn't the band causing controversy, but the presenter.
Hello, good evening and welcome to another exciting edition of Top of the Pops.
We have Steve Wright on Top of the Pops with his Acid House T-shirt on, like this.
Parents thinking, Steve Wright, oh, he's like an amiable, slightly amusing DJ, and he's got, oh, look at that nice T-shirt he's wearing. And the kids are kind of going, I know what that means.
Although 88 was Acid House's heyday, it mutated into 90s rave. Until a government bill banned gatherings of 20 people or more with music wholly or predominantly characterised by the emission of repetitive beats. The party was over.
I feel so lucky to have been at that place in that time. I feel so lucky to have been there and to have been involved in it and to be part of it.
Of course there were casualties from it, and I'm not kind of minimising those. But what's interesting now, there's lots of nostalgia groups around that period, and the biggest feedback is people going, I would give anything to be back there again.
One Acid House veteran, looking back fondly on the period, might come as a surprise.
I loved it. I loved it. We were all tired out. He was tired out because he was on ease and not sleeping and he didn't know what to do with the money. I was tired out because we never had days off or anything like that. But if I look back on that period, it was the best policing role I ever had. I couldn't replicate it in anything else I did in my life.
Sometimes I think I want the youth of today to go and... Because everything is like... All the festivals and everything is all big business now, and it's all... I'd love them to go off and start their own scene again and go, do you know what? This is what we think of that. We want to do our own thing.
The controversial party of 1988 is far from over, as a politician is left with egg on her face.
I think there was an attempt to hang me out to dry. It turned out to be a failure.
Saints become sinners.
They were basically hucksters and charlatans, that's what they were.
And a royal holiday ends in tragedy.
What on earth is the future king getting involved in such dangerous pursuits?
Welcome back to the surfeit of scandal that was 1988, the year that one controversial Conservative seemed to be on an unstoppable rise.
The Junior Health Minister, Edwina Currie, has been helping to launch this year's National No Smoking Day, and she's joining me now.
She seemed in the sort of Margaret Thatcher mould in that she was very tough, she was very articulate, she didn't stand any nonsense.
I am convinced that we should allow the police to use their existing powers and put these on our criminals and leave them on.
In 1988, Edwina Currie was just a junior minister, but she knew exactly how to boost her profile.
She was not a major politician, but she loved being on the TV cameras.
I think she's one of the greatest prime ministers this country has ever had.
By 1988, Edwina's outspokenness had seen her promoted to Junior Health Minister, and in that role she became aware of a medical mystery that had led to a spate of hospitalizations.
We seem to have growing infections, food poisoning that was putting a lot of people in hospital. The Public Health Laboratory Service said to me, "Minister, I think you should know that we've traced the cause of this, and it's in eggs." What? So when we got to about 500 confirmed cases a week, so that's people sick enough to have samples taken, I took it upon myself to tell everybody, just to warn them.
The controversial events that followed would define Edwina Currie's reputation, transform our eating habits, and impact UK egg production for years.
Tomorrow, the government will announce a series of new measures to combat the spread of salmonella in eggs.
And then Edwina hit the nation with this soundbite bombshell.
We do warn people now that most of the egg production of this country, sadly, is now infected with salmonella. It's always one headline, "Don't eat eggs," which I never said. Mayonnaise and dressings and Bloody Marys and that sort of thing, they are not a good idea anymore. All we really wanted to say was you shouldn't eat raw egg. We would advise strongly against using raw egg. And the whole hell broke loose.
A Conservative backbencher, Richard Holt, has called for Mrs Currie's resignation. He said her behaviour had been crass.
Junior Minister Edwina Currie, who highlighted the salmonella worries, has been silent today. But the egg producers and some MPs are still demanding her resignation.
In the weeks after I'd said my little piece, I think something like 6 million people stopped buying eggs, which was quite an impact.
The whole of the British egg market sort of collapsed and 5,000 egg farmers practically went out of business.
I think it'll be a different industry that comes out of this. We've lost a lot of business, and some of it I think we'll never get back.
400 million eggs and 4 million hens were destroyed as a result of Edwina Currie's remark. Claim and counterclaim followed.
I do think she's right, and I think the farmers have got themselves to blame.
The British Egg Council called Mrs Currie's comments factually incorrect and highly misleading. According to them, the risk of any egg being infected is less than 200 million to 1.
Suddenly, publicity-hungry Edwina found herself walking on eggshells in so many ways.
The Junior Health Minister was carefully avoiding awkward questions when she visited a hospital in South London.
Stand by your remarks.
Her claim on the weekend that most egg production was now affected with salmonella has drawn fresh criticism.
Egg on face, headlines on the front pages.
Obviously, it was a tragedy for the egg industry, but the rest of us had to endure this barrage of egg puns in the newspaper. It was all like, "Are you all white, egg wiener? It's no yolk. What shall we do?"
Eventually, with the press furore showing no signs of slackening...
Do you regret anything you said?
No. Something had to give.
The current ministerial career of Edwina Currie came to an end this afternoon. She resigned from office as the government faced up to the full cost of her comments about contaminated eggs and as MPs on all sides said enough was enough.
You just kind of feel, oh, I want out of this. Like John Travolta at the end of Saturday Night Fever. I am an able person. I can do other things. That's what you feel.
Since the end of her eventful 27-month stint as a junior minister, Edwina's colourful career post-politics has seen her win Celebrity Mastermind, come fourth in I'm a Celeb, and publish 6 novels, plus published diaries that made major headlines. And as a final twist in the tale, in 2001 it was revealed that there had been a salmonella epidemic in 1988, which had been covered up by the government.
I think there was an attempt to hang me out to dry. It turned out to be a failure.
Let's head over to the US for our next controversy, where 1988's biggest TV stars weren't chat show hosts or actors, but televangelists.
When you are in America, you put on the TV preacher channels, it's utterly fascinating.
I mean, basically hucksters and charlatans, that's what they were.
There was so much money involved that these people got incredibly rich. One of them built a Christian theme park. They had gold taps on these bathrooms. They had private jets because they needed this to do the work of the Lord.
They obviously haven't read the Bible in these guys, haven't they? Because when you read the Bible, Jesus comes over as quite a humble guy who doesn't seem to need to be a TV evangelist or a rock and roll star.
In a crowded market, it was preacher versus preacher, as all God's chosen broadcasters tried to increase their viewers. Because more viewers mean more donations, and more donations mean more gold taps.
There's always preacher wars. They're always fighting each other because it's a big money business and they're all superstars and rivals.
It's a whole wasp's nest of backstabbing people being very unchristian to one another.
By 1988, one of the biggest wasps in this hugely competitive but lucrative nest had established himself in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Jimmy Swaggart was like one of the best-known evangelical preachers of the 1980s. He was all over TV.
I'm saved. I'm washed in the blood. I'm saved by the blood of Jesus. I'm saved. I'm baptized in the Holy Ghost. My body is a temple of the Holy Spirit.
Swaggart was the avenging angel of televangelism, ready to accuse his rivals if he suspected they'd sinned.
Swaggart is a fire and brimstone preacher with a special talent in front of vast audiences for pointing the finger at others.
Your day is about over.
And point the finger he did in 1986 when Swaggart made the ultimately short-sighted move of accusing fellow Assemblies of God minister Marvin Gorman of having multiple affairs.
He had to go at another tele-evangelist type who got caught in flagranti having affairs and stuff and was really condemning him, and then he got caught with his trousers down himself.
The disgraced Gorman had decided two can play that game.
He tracked Jimmy Swaggart. He spied on him in a motel bedroom and caught him going in and out with a sex worker. And he even went to the trouble of letting down Jimmy Swaggart's car tires so he couldn't make a quick escape.
Cue some of 1988's most extraordinary TV.
One of America's leading television evangelists, Jimmy Swaggart, has resigned in disgrace over a sex scandal. He's said to have been photographed with a prostitute in a hotel room.
When he was caught, I actually think that he did the first ever I've been cancelled apology. Now it happens on Twitter all the time.
I have sinned against you.
He did it much better. He came on stage and he was crying.
I have sinned against you, my Lord.
He goes on air and says, I have sinned. Please forgive me.
He asked forgiveness from his wife, Frances.
I have sinned against you, and I beg your forgiveness.
I have sinned and all that kind of thing, which was endlessly sampled and played out through loads and loads of records and went through pop culture for years.
Swaggart's crying game seemed to do the trick.
I think we're all human, and God loves him, and he loves us all, and we should stand behind him.
What we saw in there was something that took a man to do, and so we're proud of him.
a lot of people did forgive him, and he kept going.
Jimmy Swaggart, the American television evangelist who resigned in disgrace after a relationship with a prostitute, is back in the pulpit.
At which point, Jimmy Swaggart resumed his career as a TV preacher, never making the headlines again. Is what didn't happen.
And then he had another prostitute scandal. We're like, the devil again?
But while in America it was TV evangelists bringing calamity upon themselves, in 1988 the future King of England would be a victim of a shocking natural disaster.
Prince Charles was on a skiing holiday in Cloisters with Major Hugh Lindsay and with various members of the Palmer Tompkinson family, although not Tara.
Where the royals go, the paparazzi followed, even when their long lenses were freezing.
How long have you all been standing here for?
This was a favourite destination for the royal thrill seekers.
They have chosen Cloisters for the past 3 years as a royal winter resort because of the quality and complexity of its ski runs.
After 4 days of cloudy skies, the sun was finally shining in the resort, and the prince was determined to make the most of it.
On that particular day, he went off skiing with Bruno Sprecher, who was the guide, and they decided to go off-piste.
The Prince of Wales was off-piste. Now, that, I think, means that he was away from the easier skiing areas. Does that mean that he was in a more dangerous area of the mountains?
There have been lots of avalanches that have affected people on-piste as well as off-piste.
While going off-piste is common for experienced skiers, there are always risks.
Had there been any warnings about the danger of avalanche?
It was quite clear around about halfway through the morning that there were avalanche warnings.
Such a warning does not deter experts from going off-piste, and like this, the royal party descended the slope, weaving their way across the mountainside.
It was quite a steep mountain. It was not for beginners.
Despite their skills on the slopes, the royal party could not foresee the icy twist ahead.
Prince Charles is an expert skier, and he likes doing these tough runs, according to the people I know in Cloisters. He may have not been able to resist the new fallen powdered snow, which is the dream of most skiers, and he instructed the guide to take him there.
Of course, we don't know whether that was what happened.
What we do know is that what happened next was every skier's worst nightmare, a huge and all-enveloping avalanche.
But it was down to the quick thinking of Bruno Sprecher. When he realised what was happening, he yelled at the top of his voice to the whole party, "Jump!"
The Prince of Wales, as he was then, only just manages to avoid it.
It was as a result of that jump, the Prince of Wales was able to escape the full magnitude of this avalanche. Unfortunately, Major Hugh Lindsay and Paddy Palmer Tompkinson were both caught in the avalanche.
Charles and the group frantically dug through the icy snow, desperate to rescue their buried companions.
And Mrs. Palmer Tompkinson is okay. I think she has damage to her legs and her lungs.
When they got to Hugh, he was pretty much dead at that moment in time.
Major Hugh Lindsay was killed instantly. Another member of the party, Mrs. Patty Palmer Tompkinson, was badly injured. The avalanche swept the two victims more than 1,000 feet.
They said that the Prince of Wales was actually crying when they got him into the helicopter.
As the shock waves from the avalanche rippled outward, the spotlight fell on Charles and his role in the fatal incident.
Within days of the event happening, the questions then started to be asked, what on earth is the future king getting involved in such dangerous pursuits?
Swiss experts are almost certain that the royal skiing party triggered the avalanche themselves. A scientific investigation is now complete, and its conclusion is that the weight of the skiers loosened the snow and set off a chain reaction, bringing down a huge cascade of snow and ice from the side of the mountain.
And for many years afterwards, Charles blamed himself, really, for the death of Hugh Lindsay.
Further fallout from the incident was a deepening of cracks in the already strained royal marriage, as a moment's decision to go off-piste in 1988 had repercussions far beyond the slopes. And there are still more controversies to be unearthed as fear begins to dig deep.
It just seems like a recipe for disaster.
Rats coming over, IRA.
Icy tensions melt in a Cold War twist.
We all got terribly worked up that there was going to be a nuclear war.
And gangster rap has parents up in arms.
If you tell your child don't go there, that's the first place they're gonna go.
"1988 saw controversy come in many forms, with even feats of civil engineering becoming huge headline grabbers. Ooh, fun graphics.
Mrs. Thatcher and President Mitterrand meet in France this morning to announce which scheme has been chosen for a fixed link across the Channel. They'll be making the announcement in Lille, where the Channel Tunnel Group is expected to emerge as the winner.
This was like our equivalent of the moon landing.
It was quite amazing.
This exciting animation shows the plan's ambition. 50-kilometre tunnels connecting the UK and France.
The English Channel's days as the last bastion of Britain's island status are numbered. Within 7 or 8 years, you should be able to travel by car from the tip of Italy to John O'Groats without ever resorting to a ferry.
It was bold, it was ambitious, and it got a lot of people hot under the collar.
There was huge controversy.
If it's a loop or something, it might collapse.
It's terrifying if you think about building a tunnel underneath war. It just seems like a recipe for disaster.
For some, predictably, it was the idea of travelling beneath the ocean bed that was making them queasy.
When I first heard about the Channel Tunnel, even the words made me want to bury my head.
No, I'd probably get claustrophobia.
I had actual nightmares of people going under the channel and actually sort of suffocating. It didn't seem real.
Although there were other equally predictable fears being aired.
There'll be protests in Dover and in the Kent countryside, which stand to suffer from the tunnel traffic and its giant terminal.
My granddad's definitely against it because the tunnel is going to be tunnelled right underneath his house.
There were newspaper headlines warning us that this was the start of Armageddon.
England's always been an island, and why should it be joined up with France now?
Why would we allow Johnny Foreigner the ease with which to come through the tunnel? They will be queuing up, they will be racing through, we will have no control.
This controversial notion of an undersea tunnel linking us with Europe wasn't exactly new.
So as early as 1802, the idea had come up to build a tunnel, and I just love the drawings because they thought there would be horse-drawn carriages going underneath, and there would be a chimney providing oxygen.
But those crazy Georgians with their channel chimneys would have to wait until 88 for the dream to become reality. The big question was, where do you start with such a mammoth task? The answer, as illustrated by state-of-the-art graphics late 80s style, was over here and over there.
And that's when the genius idea came that, oh, you can start tunneling from this end, you can start tunneling from this end, and you'll meet in the middle.
At each face was an enormous tunnel boring machine, or TBM. Computer-operated and laser-guided, it made an average speed of 12 centimetres per minute.
When work started on the project, a barrage of protest followed.
British people are quite resistant to change.
Fire in the tunnel, the leakages, rats coming over, IRA. I think it's terrible.
Terrorists and rabies.
And it was hilarious because the older generation, I remember this, the fear, the hysteria.
I'm afraid I won't be using it. Ever. Not unless it's absolutely necessary.
I'm standing at the mouth of the Channel Tunnel, a new gateway to Europe. Down there now, about 23 kilometres out to sea, they're preparing to make the first human breakthrough.
After all the fuss, when it opened in the mid-90s, channelers didn't know what to expect.
Under the channel to England.
I can't believe that's where we are. Actually, I wondered whether there were going to be sound effects, whether you'd actually hear the kind of blah, 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 blah on the other side.
And then, typically, Britain changed its mind overnight and decided we quite liked it after all.
If we were looking for speed, it's an ideal mode of transport.
If you want quickness,
and you want a fuller day over in France, then you go by the tunnel.
And of course, the reality was that it opened up this country to people to come from Europe. It opened up the entire European continent for people from Britain to go there.
Someone can call you and say, hey, can you come do a gig in Paris? And it's like being asked, can I come do a gig in Dover? In fact, it probably takes me less time to get to Paris.
Yes, this was an innovation that led to absolute and unencumbered freedom of movement between Britain and Europe that nothing could ever reverse.
I think the Channel Tunnel now is as much a part of the British holiday psyche as going to Butlins and a wet August bank holiday and swimming in sewage. It's what our holidays are all about.
I, Ronald Reagan, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
Let's head back to America now to catch up with their popular and controversial president, Ronald Reagan.
Look, I had a chance to shoot a bunch of you the other day and didn't.
Throughout 2 terms in office, this former cowboy actor never hid his suspicion of the Soviet Union with this sort of thing.
They are the focus of evil in the modern world.
Don't hold back now, Ron. So we had the US and the Soviet Union, 2 nuclear superpowers, in a scary standoff that was keeping us all awake at night.
In the mid-80s, we all got terribly worked up about the danger that there was going to be a nuclear war. Reagan had become president at the beginning of 1981, and we were really afraid he was going to start World War III.
What was known as the Cold War threatened to get very hot very quickly in the 80s as both sides constantly rattled sabers.
What can be said about Soviet credibility when they so flagrantly lie?
There had been so much suspicion, so much absolute conviction that somebody was going to start a war.
It was an act of barbarism, born of a society which wantonly disregards individual rights and the value of human life.
But then, a controversial development on both sides. Whisper it, compromise was in the air.
Things you just didn't think would ever happen all sort of happened.
A key factor was a new man in charge in the Soviet Union.
For a long time, the USSR had been governed by Leonid Brezhnev, who was one of the old guys in the Politburo. Then, in 1985, we got Mikhail Gorbachev, who was a bit of an unknown quantity. He wasn't that old. He just suddenly struck us more laid back, more friendly.
Gorbachev seemed a new kind of Russian. Mrs. Thatcher's verdict?
I like Mr. Gorbachev. We can do business together.
And of course, in Gorbachev, you've got this extraordinary man, one of the most extraordinary men who's ever lived, I think, to have the foresight and vision to say, yeah, this is going nowhere, this. We need to rethink.
Gorbachev felt that if he didn't shore up the existing Soviet Union by making it more open and so on, it would just collapse.
Margaret Thatcher, who was the Prime Minister at the time, met him and she said, I can do business with him. And we went, really? He started talking about these 2 words we hadn't come across before. One of them was glasnost, which meant openness. And this other word he came up with was perestroika, which meant reorganising.
Good evening. The Iceland summit has ended without any agreement.
Reagan and Gorbachev had met in Reykjavik in 1986, and we now know the drama that had occurred behind closed doors.
But when they got in the room on their own, or with just a handful of aides, Gorbachev said, why don't we get rid of half of our nuclear weapons each? And Reagan said, why don't we get rid of all of them? And apparently you could feel the room go as the aides went and dashed out saying he's going to get rid of all our nuclear weapons, and was reined in by his generals.
The next shock came in 1988 with Reagan's big duh to the offer of a Russian state visit.
Ronald Reagan stepped onto Soviet soil this morning. Only 2 American presidents since the Second World War have gone there before him.
Here was hawky hardliner Reagan, the Soviet nemesis, in the very epicenter of what he'd called the evil empire.
President Reagan has been welcomed to Moscow. He and Mr. Gorbachev have begun their talks. The atmosphere is cordial.
They wandered out into Red Square for a look at Lenin's mausoleum and St. Basil's Cathedral.
In Red Square, there was plenty of time for photo opportunities, including the much-loved staple, politician meets small child.
There was your president, Reagan.
Do you recognize President Reagan?
We find ourselves standing like this.
The Soviet-American relationship today was better than at any point since the Second World War.
Watching Reagan in Red Square, I think it was easy to get swept up in the optimism of it.
This wasn't just about photo shoots, rather a possible new future of life on Earth.
No one 3 years ago would have foreseen that the old hostility would have turned into what's now almost a partnership.
Not long earlier, talk of Armageddon had seemed only too real. Now, the two leaders were aggressively pursuing peace.
Reagan and Gorbachev both saw an opportunity to bring the Cold War to an end.
I would like to think that our efforts during these past few days have slayed a few dragons and advanced the struggle against the evils that threaten mankind.
There was a reduction in the number of conventional weapons right through Europe. There was an element of peace in our time.
The first lines have already been written into the book of a world without wars, violence, or nuclear weapons. I believe that no one can now close that book and put it aside.
It was a moment of hope in both capitals.
President Reagan left Moscow this morning saying he'd learned much and hoped for more. The atmosphere was cordial, and both he and Mr. Gorbachev spoke of cooperation, openness and friendship.
Of course, it wasn't to last, but the feeling of optimism, certainly for people of our age, was acute.
Not all Americans were ready to sit down and talk peace with their enemies. In music, one group shocked listeners with their graphic and confrontational rhymes that gave rap a whole new controversial genre.
NWA is the first time that gangster rap has been heard of.
NWA's album Straight Outta Compton was and is a rap and hip-hop classic, which is about drugs and crime.
But it was very, very controversial, let's say the words, because there was a lot of cussing.
You know, we did something real different. When we put our record out, we like slapped everybody in the face and said, yo, listen to this. You know, plus everything we said was real.
The grooves were howls of rage toward rival gangs, the police, and life in one of America's most violent neighborhoods.
It introduces the rest of the world to South Central Los Angeles, which no one really knows about before then. The battles, the murderous battles between the Bloods and the Crips to the two main gangs.
High school Centennial was like, it was half and half. It was half Crips on this side of the school and Bloods on this side of the school, so it was like, wow.
Also, it allows NWA to talk about police oppression of black people.
I got stopped by the police recently. Get out the car, keep your hands on the steering wheel, come over here, sit on the curb. Any guns in the car, what gang you from, any drugs in the car, and I'm wondering, if I was in Beverly Hills with a different color skin, would they ask me what gang am I in?
This was an explosive rhetoric and sound never heard before. And mainstream America didn't know how to react. NWA experienced hostility from the FBI and the police. But the band's core audience understood.
I like them. I think they're hot. They speak the truth.
It was just really a lot of young black kids from Compton talking about what their lifestyle was like every day. And most of the people in the neighborhoods was just like, well, that's just what happens on my way to school or coming back from the supermarket. I might get pulled over.
Controversy sells, and Straight Outta Compton shifted 1 million copies in its first year. UK rap fans were impressed, but also culturally unprepared for this take-no-prisoners assault on their speakers, their attitudes, and their minds.
I remember taking the tape into school the next day and playing it to friends on my Walkman. And, you know, I went to quite a middle-class grammar school in the North London suburbs, and we were just gobsmacked. Just hearing the N-word repeated so regularly throughout the album, even the name of NWA, we really questioned whether this was legal or not, to even be listening to it, let alone rap about these kinds of things like killing police.
The release also entered music history as one of the first to feature a parental advisory sticker. Tipper Gore, wife of the future Vice President Al, had been on a mission.
We are asking the recording industry to voluntarily assist parents who are concerned by placing a warning label on music products inappropriate for younger children due to explicit sexual or violent lyrics.
She'd long been calling for this type of packaging to warn concerned parents of explicit content in music. But what was the effect when it was introduced?
The parental advisory sticker on the NWA album completely backfired.
As a mom, you should know, if you tell your child, don't go there, that's the first place they're gonna go.
That's not gonna put anyone off. Remember, everyone had those parental advisory T-shirts.
And then loads of white kids in the suburbs, they were like, what is this? But it was danceable, and it went pop, and it crossed over, and it sold out everywhere.
Stay tuned for more outrageous moments from 1988. A news bulletin becomes a news story.
I'm afraid we have rather been invaded.
Margaret Thatcher goes on the attack.
If you ever get triumph by television, freedom dies.
And terrorists are silenced, kind of.
One of the craziest episodes in the history of television news.
We're reliving the most controversial moments in a year full of them, 1988. Margaret Thatcher's Conservatives had been in power for 9 years, during which time they'd made sweeping changes to British society. And the Iron Lady wasn't finished. Her next crusade was controversial then, and even more so today.
Children who need to be taught to respect traditional moral values are being taught that they have an inalienable right to be gay.
Detecting a hint of homophobia, maybe? In 1988, many shared those opinions.
I obviously don't want children taught that the gay and lesbian lifestyle is natural or normal. It is not. It never has been, and it never will be.
We were in a very strange time in history. It was, I think, oppressive.
There's just been a moral panic against LGBTQ+ people, even years after the decriminalisation of homosexuality, that somehow being gay could be a bad thing.
Through my school career, saying gay was still an insult.
A law was proposed to make it illegal to promote homosexuality in schools. But what exactly did promote mean?
This policy, called Section 28, essentially banned teachers from, quote, encouraging any or even talking about gay relationships and LGBTQ+ relationships in a positive light.
Simply talking about homosexuality, you could be accused of promoting it. Simply talking to somebody as homosexual, you could be accused of promoting it if you talk about their needs.
I think it's really hard now to remember how awful Clause 28 was. An advocacy against the promotion of homosexuality, and it really meant it was impossible to be gay. It was impossible to be out and proud.
The LGBT community decided to fight back with protests and high-profile speakers.
We must be out and about, in pubs and clubs and in the classroom, talking about homosexuality and, in fact, in that sense, promoting homosexuality.
But in pre-social media 1988, such protests went largely unseen by the mainstream audience. So an audacious escalation was planned to take the anti-Clause 28 message straight into people's homes.
The 6 o'clock news from the BBC with Sue Lawley and Nicholas Witchell.
From the start of the BBC News Bulletin, you immediately know that something's off. I mean, you can hear Sue Lawley literally shout for news at you.
Good evening. The headlines at 6 o'clock. In the House of Lords, a vote is taking place now on a challenge to the poll tax. Tory rebels have said that the tax is unfair and unpopular.
You start seeing the camera move from side to side, essentially trying to avoid the activists from being picked up on camera.
And I do apologise if you're hearing quite a lot of noise in this studio at the moment.
Protesters had infiltrated BBC Television Centre and somehow slipped into the news studio just as it went on air.
I don't know how they did it, get past security at the BBC. I worked at the BBC and I was stopped at the gate every day.
I'm afraid that we have rather been invaded by some people who we hope to be removing very shortly.
It's not great to be a live newsreader and have something like that happen, and I've done a lot of live television, and I don't know how I would have coped. Probably not as resolutely as Miss Lawley, that's all.
Very quickly, events in the BBC News studio became a BBC News item.
With handcuffs still attached to the camera cable and the 6 o'clock news still on the air, the protesters were taken away by police.
It's fascinating to see how far people would go to get their message across.
Outside the studio, one woman who'd handcuffed herself to camera cables was cut free.
Thanks very much.
Another and the piece of studio furniture she'd handcuffed herself to were parted in a corridor.
I thank the group of lesbians who broke into the 6 o'clock news studio and tried to take a stance.
Led away, the women repeated their protest.
Protesting about rights for lesbian and gay people.
And of course, it led to an awful amount of attention on the policy.
The protesters had succeeded in getting Clause 28 onto the front pages, but they weren't able to stop it becoming law. The controversial ban would be in place for 15 years, affecting millions.
Section 28 led to such a terrible impact for young LGBTQ+ people, and it only got lifted more than a decade later. But even then, in the years subsequently, it was still LGBTQ+ lives were not taught about in school.
I would have had a great time if my old biology teacher had said something about his boyfriend. I'd have been like, oh, good, there's nothing wrong with me. But sadly, that wasn't the case.
Finally, let me apologise to you for the slight commotion in the studio at the beginning of the programme. Our unwelcome guests have now been taken away by the police, and I hope the noise and my hesitations didn't distract you too much from tonight's news.
Throughout the 70s and 80s, British news was dominated by the conflict in Northern Ireland between Unionists and Republicans. By 1988, any peaceful resolution of the Troubles seemed impossible.
At this time, in 1988, it was probably worse than it had ever been.
It was the nearest to a civil war that we've had. The British Army on the streets, riot controls, so many innocent people killed.
Horrendous things were happening in a part of the United Kingdom.
And then what happened is that it spread to the mainland.
We were all checking under our cars.
And of course, there was the Brighton bomb attack.
Bombs were in the House of Commons.
Margaret Thatcher's stance was positively and indeed knowingly Churchillian.
This government will never surrender to the IRA, never.
That uncompromising stance led to another government battle with broadcasters. Their first broadside was aimed at ITV, whose current affairs show, Death on the Rock, investigated a shooting by the army of 3 IRA members in Gibraltar. The order was given, stop the broadcast.
I think the feeling about Death on the Rock was it rather let the side down, because it came out at a time when the IRA was causing us still terrible, terrible trouble.
Death on the Rock suggested the IRA members may have been unlawfully killed by the British Army. The government feared these revelations may taint the coroner's inquest and tried to halt the broadcast, but to no avail. The documentary aired in April 1988.
The Prime Minister has accused the Independent Broadcasting Authority of acting irresponsibly in allowing the screening last night of an ITV programme about the killing of 3 IRA terrorists in Gibraltar. It included an interview with an eyewitness who said that 2 of the terrorists were shot after they had appeared to surrender.
Margaret Thatcher was very bitter and hurt by it.
As the nation grappled with the implications of Death on the Rock, Margaret Thatcher hit back hard with these words aimed at the broadcasters.
If you ever get trial by television or guilt by accusation, that day, freedom dies.
It was a very frightening time to be upholding democracy and the rule of law.
I think, looking back, Death on the Rock was a brave piece of investigative journalism.
Relations between TV companies and the government were already on shaky ground when, that October, new broadcasting restrictions were announced. They may have started with understandable intentions, but would end in farce, and one of the most notorious infringements of British press freedom.
Good evening. The government has banned anyone who speaks in support of Irish terrorism from doing so on television or radio in this country.
This was Margaret Thatcher as Prime Minister saying that she wanted to deny the IRA the oxygen of publicity.
Suddenly, edict from government was that you cannot broadcast the voices of leaders of various groups, Sinn Féin being one.
As the leader of Sinn Féin, Gerry Adams was the most prominent voice that the Tories wanted silenced.
They thought that if we didn't use Gerry Adams' voice, then there would be no more interviews with Gerry Adams, period.
The bizarre solution, adopted by broadcasters, was to hire actors to say the words of the band leaders. Viewers got the same message, just said by someone different.
They turned down the sound on the soundtrack and substituted the voice of an actor. And it was absolutely bonkers.
If everyone in Ireland tomorrow morning voted for Sinn Féin, it wouldn't make a blind bit of difference to the British government.
When it came in, we thought, well, we're going to have a roster of actors with a certain accent that you can phone up at last minute.
We can only achieve what we're attempting to establish in Ireland, a democratic socialist republic, through the use of political action and military force.
And so in the end, it was just a total nonsense. The better that the actors became at getting the voices, you might as well have just been hearing from Sinn Féin.
What divides Catholics and Protestants, Unionists and Nationalists in Ireland is the British presence. Take the British presence and the guns out of Ireland, there will be peace in Ireland.
So far from being denied the oxygen of publicity, I think that in some ways more people listened.
But what it meant was that the already fractious relationship between the government and broadcasters just deteriorated.
People started taking the mickey, and it was really easy to take the mickey out of actually something quite serious.
Earlier today, I spoke to their deputy leader, Rory O'Connor, who, under broadcasting restrictions, must inhale helium to subtract credibility from his statements.
So you do support this campaign of violence?
Sinn Féin is a legitimate political party.
I regard it as one of the craziest episodes in the history of television news.
Which supports terrorist action.
Your tone is antagonistic and you're making me very angry.
Brace yourselves for some divine drama. His Holiness gets heckled.
It is truly strange behaviour by a grown man.
And fiction fuels fury.
He's a devil, the true devil himself come to life.
We're stepping boldly into the most controversial events of 1988, where it's time to reacquaint ourselves with a man whose very veins flowed with outrage.
I remember growing up with Ian Paisley always being on the news.
You'll never defeat the Protestant people of Ulster.
An amazing accent, an unforgettable face, his finger jabbing.
Never! Never!
Fire and brimstone.
Never! Never!
He could be a very frightening character.
so determined and so aggressive.
You go down there and do your duty, and don't read a lecture to me.
In Northern Ireland's religious divide of the 70s and 80s, Paisley was the booming voice of hardline Protestants. His rhetoric was uncompromising.
We reject the Pope as Antichrist, and
He was the man who was going to complain about Roman Catholics to his dying day, we thought. And you couldn't have been more strident in terms of anti-papacy, anti-the Pope.
From 1979, Paisley had been what you might describe as an outspoken member of the European Parliament. He'd heckled Irish Taoiseach Jack Lynch, he'd shouted down British PM Margaret Thatcher, and then, in 1988, guess who arrived in Brussels to make an address?
I remember turning on the TV and them saying, oh, the Pope's visiting the European Parliament.
With Reverend Paisley's track record, no one expected him to be hanging out the bunting. But what did happen still came as a shock.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, permit me to say how much I...
Paisley within a few yards of the Pope, well, that's putting a match to a fire, isn't it?
I'm going to do a one-man protest. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to pull out all this stuff saying the Pope's the Antichrist, and doing it like an Extinction Rebellion protester.
Mr Paisley quoted a 16th century anti-papist slogan as furious Euro MPs threw papers at him in disgust.
Other European members of Parliament sort of jumped on him to keep him quiet.
Mr Paisley, I call you to order and I ask you to stop this disturbance.
The Pope was actually pretty cool. Just kind of stands there and lets Ian Paisley get on with it. If someone was, describing me as the Antichrist, I might have got a bit upset.
The poster stated simply John Paul II Antichrist, a reference to the view supported by Archbishop Cranmer in Reformation times that by claiming to be God's earthly representative, popes have usurped the position of Christ.
I mean, it is truly strange behaviour by a grown man. What are you doing, sir? You're an elected representative. It's like you're behaving like a lunatic on Oxford Street.
Mr Paisley, I now exclude you from this House and for the remainder of the sitting.
The roaring Reverend may have caused a commotion, but what happened that day in Brussels was far from being the year's biggest religious controversy. 1988 saw the publication of the era's most notorious novel. The saga of events that followed featured riots, religious decrees, and death threats. Propelling an Indian-born writer from fame in literary circles into the international spotlight.
In 1988, the novelist Salman Rushdie produced a novel called The Satanic Verses.
Two actors, prancing Jibreel and Buttony pursed Mr. Saladin Chamcha, fell like titbits of tobacco from a broken old cigar.
It's an adventure romp in which various characters who are associated with the film industry go through various carnations and incarnations, and they take on various roles.
If I had to say in one word what this novel is essentially about, it's about the nature of metamorphosis. It's about change.
He is a very learned writer, and he's also into magical realism, where there's satire going on, there's comedy, there's real historical research. It's designed to inflame your passions and also for you to really love the way he writes in English.
The witty, weighty, and wide-ranging novel was published to critical acclaim, although one controversial chapter started to receive special attention.
One of those storylines is about a character being reincarnated in the guise of the Prophet Muhammad, and various adventures happen to him.
What stirred controversy is the suggestion, couched in allegory, of a human Muhammad with human failings.
He actually had the Prophet Muhammad doing stuff that a lot of Muslims would find very offensive. Salman Rushdie probably didn't think too much about the reaction the Satanic Verses was going to create. In places like Bradford, in places like Mumbai, in places like Karachi and Lahore.
It's been condemned as blasphemous by fundamentalists all over the Islamic world, most recently in Pakistan, where 5 people died in rioting on Sunday.
I think he didn't think about it. He just thought, publish and be damned, and let's see what happens.
It's the fact that Rushdie was born into Islam and is now, as they see it, turning against his own religion that has stirred anger among Muslims, including those in Britain.
He was probably really taken by surprise.
So was the rest of Britain, as outraged Muslims took to the streets in a way not seen before.
He's a devil, the true devil himself come to life.
The Satanic Verses controversy felt like it had come from nothing.
How many people do you think feel like that?
We all feel like that, all of us.
And for a British Asian like me, it was just bonkers, because suddenly I saw other British Asians on TV burning books.
The public burning of the book on the streets of Britain has shown that the fact that it's fiction makes no difference to those whose leaders have pronounced it blasphemous.
If religious people don't like a certain movie or a certain book, the best thing they can do is not talk about it. Because of the scandal, more people read the Satanic Verses than ever would have. They should have just kept quiet, or better yet, if they said they like it, nobody would read it.
This is the latest stage in a campaign that began with smears and vilifications and distortions of the book, which has escalated through all sorts of levels of violence.
And slowly but surely, as people found out about it, it started spreading. There were demonstrations in other parts of the world.
What had started as vocal protests escalated into something darker when the controversy reached Iran.
And then the Ayatollah Khomeini made a pronouncement on it.
Iran's spiritual leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, has told Muslims that the prize-winning author Salman Rushdie must be killed on sight. His book, Satanic Verses, is an insult to Islam, the Ayatollah said, and he, his publishers, and everybody knowingly involved in producing the book were now under sentence of death.
He basically offered a bounty on Salman Rushdie's head, and then all hell broke loose.
Before then, most of us had never heard the Islamic term for a ruling or edict. Now we all know about fatwa.
Fundamentalist followers of Ayatollah Khomeini call him Imam, Allah's representative on earth. So the sentencing to death in absentia of someone accused of blasphemy is considered well within the Ayatollah's jurisdiction.
I remember turning on the evening news and seeing people who looked like my dad essentially saying, yeah, if I saw him right now, I'd kill him.
The tabloids got involved and started joking about mad mullahs, Islamic fundamentalists who are crazy to have Salman Rushdie's head on a plate.
Rushdie was to have flown to the States to promote the book there. Now that trip is under review and his agent says steps are being taken to ensure his security.
And that meant spending the next 10 years in hiding.
You don't want a bestseller that is achieved at the cost of there being a price on your head. Having to live in safe houses, having to have police protection wherever you go. Everything he did then became risky to anyone he did it with.
An uneasy peace developed from the end of the 90s, then a shocking new twist came in 2022, when a knife attack on Rushdie in New York resulted in the loss of the use of one hand and the sight in one eye, all down to the words he wrote more than 3 decades earlier.
I think there's a lot of self-censoring which occurs in art. And I think it's a shame because I think the best art is transgressive and the best art takes risks, but at the same time, you don't want to have to fear for your life.
People forget that if you read the Satanic Verses, it's a work of the imagination. It's not about Muhammad, it's not about religion, it's not a comment on Islam or Muslims. And the threat to him is still going on.
Shocking? We haven't even got started. Do not adjust your sets, as a beloved TV presenter is tied up in controversy.
It was one of those classic scandals.
Cocaine and sex parties, I think.
And a soap tackles tough issues head on.
She suddenly finds herself in this really dangerous situation.
Next up, a truly shocking 1988 controversy that had it all. A household name, drugs, sex, and knitwear?
Oh my goodness! It was one of those classic classic scandals. It really was. You couldn't make it up.
It was complete shock.
There was the quiet ones, you know.
And here is that quiet one. A safe pair of hands, more than able of rocking a zip-up cardigan tie combo, loved and trusted by viewers.
Good evening. This time tomorrow, it'll all be over.
Friendly Frank Boff had been the voice of sport on grandstand since the 60s.
It's breakfast time. It's Wednesday, the 9th of February today.
Then, in the 80s, he became as much a part of British breakfasts as Lardy Bacon. Calm, reassuring, great in a pastel sweater, Frank was someone we all got used to waking up with.
Well, our guest this morning is the king of British magic, Paul Daniels. It's always a brighter place when you're here. I don't know why it is.
Well, it's because you wear your yellow sweater.
Frank Boff was a warm, kind of friendly BBC presenter.
He was very much the nation's cosy breakfast show host.
I've never had it so early in my life, all this sport.
There's no answer to that, Frank, actually, is there? Well, he was Grandad, wasn't he? He was Grandad presenting BBC Breakfast.
Except your Grandad probably never did this. That May, the News of the World tore up Frank's clean-cut image.
Two things that were specific to this. One was cocaine, and the other thing was sex parties, I think.
I don't think anyone saw Frank Boff's debacle coming, did they? I mean, here was, you know, a nice, slightly avuncular broadcaster in a jumper.
God bless and good morning to you.
Who suddenly is doing cocaine with prostitutes and kind of, you know, being kind of flayed alive in front of the nation. We loved it.
Now, despite the bitter chill of winter, there's a lot happening outdoors as dawn comes up this morning.
When there's a schism between the public face and the private person, that's what makes it really shocking.
Now, as you may have read by now, this is obviously the programme for you if you want to stay as trim as you can.
It was a massive story, and journalists were rubbing their hands with glee, and people were just ecstatic in Fleet Street about it. You know, it's like lifting the stone and there's all the worms, you know, wriggling about underneath.
Boff's self-defeating excuse was that he'd only started using cocaine after prostitutes gave it to him, which is admitting to one scandal while denying another. The BBC pressed their presenter ejector seat button. Frank left for, quote, arrest, but then came the official sacking, followed by more juicy stories, including claims of sadomasochism, which must have hurt.
I seem to remember it was all over the tabloids, but then the tabloids then, they were like the mafia. They were lawless.
Frank's career never recovered from the substances and stockings scandal. But nowadays, would he be safely back on telly by Monday morning?
I mean, that's his private life. It shouldn't affect his career. That's his choices, you know. I know drugs are illegal, but good on Frank, that's what I say. Good for him. Good for him.
Soaps have always generated controversy, but in 1988, one EastEnders storyline went beyond the usual Albert Square gossip to really change things.
To understand the impact of Kathy's rape storyline in EastEnders way back in 1988, you kind of have to take yourself back to that particular year and understand just how huge EastEnders was.
88 was in its absolute heyday. What? They were not afraid to confront really big stories that perhaps the other soaps at that point, you know, like Coronation Street, were still very friendly.
You don't have to put a brave face on it in front of me.
This was grittier.
I feel like I've let you down. Done something disgusting. I mean, Mother's shouldn't get into these scrapes.
Look, it was hardly a scrape, was it? It's all right, Mum. It's all right. Don't worry, I'll get it.
It's an issue that hadn't been dealt with as brutally and as explicitly before, and also to a beloved character.
Gillian Tailforth had played Kathy Beale since the soap started in 1985.
Kathy was very much a stalwart of Albert Square.
Here we are.
Thanks, Mum.
Mother of Ian, wife of Pete, Kathy was a salt-of-the-earth cockney, usually shifting apples and pears on the family barrow.
Blokes like that go on forever. They're pickled, so they last longer.
No, blokes like that just go burst and they get pickled.
But by 1988, Kathy had taken a new job with debonair but smarmy James Wilmot Brown.
What's so good about it? Well, look at Kath, your new barmaid.
looks like good working on a store. She's going to look a real cracker behind your bar in the evening.
Yeah, very nice.
Wait, I can hear you two doing it my way.
Any compliments, Pete?
Now, Pete Beale doesn't really like the fact that his wife is going to work in the wine bar with Wilmot Brown.
Pete, why not come into the dance tonight, eh?
It's not my sort of gaff, you know that.
Well, then at least wish me luck.
Sorry, Kath, you know how I feel.
Wilmot Brown is a bit of an out-of-towner. That's how he would have been considered.
Oh, sorry, can we get a habit of this?
But Kathy kind of befriends him.
Certain people have a certain rapport with each other. You know straight away whether or not you're going to hit it off. It's what the tabloids call sexual chemistry. Yeah. Well, like you and me, we hit it off, didn't we, when we first met?
Yeah, I suppose so.
There were some flirtations between them, but he, one night after work, invites her upstairs for a drink, which felt really normal because they knew each other really well.
Come on, Pauline will be asleep by now. 10 minutes won't kill him.
Oh, right.
Let's go upstairs, shall we? We'll be more comfortable.
And then she suddenly finds herself in this really dangerous situation.
While Channel 4's Brookside had been the first soap to include a storyline based around rape, when EastEnders covered the subject, 19 million viewers were watching.
She's been attacked.
Well, what do you mean attacked? Will someone tell me?
He raped her.
And at the time, it garnered hundreds of complaints from viewers because, for many of us, that was the first time we'd ever seen a woman attacked on screen by someone that she knew.
I mean, is it right that he should be allowed to go around scot-free to do it again? And is it right that Kathy has to keep this guilty secret from her husband just because some bloke wanted sex and he wanted it from her? Is that right?
All right, I'll call the police.
It made a big splash in all the red tops. It became a huge talking point up and down the country. The term date rape, for example, suddenly became popularised.
Women not being believed, women crying wolf, all of those kinds of narratives that would have been out there.
The storyline remains a landmark soap moment.
It's harrowing. It was harrowing to watch. It was harrowing television.
Really hurt me inside. It hurt me in my mind.
Her acting in it is absolutely incredible.
God, I just want to pull my skin off. I want to die. I really want to die.
It's what soaps like EastEnders do very, very well by bringing the issues into the home.
I think EastEnders, the one thing that they do very, very well is when they do a storyline, they handle them in a way that makes people think. And if anything, starts a conversation so that change can occur and be made. EastEnders does that very well. And they should be commended for that.
If you or someone you know has been affected by any of the issues raised in tonight's programme, please go to channel5.com/helplines for information and support. Next, a new Criminals Caught on Camera.